Hello and welcome to Boston. Welcome to Explore History's celebration of the 250th anniversary of America's founding. We are here in Boston because Boston was the cradle of liberty for 150 years. New England was the testing ground for American self-government. From the landing of the Pilgrims in Plymouth, 40 miles to the south, to Winthrop's idea of a city on a hill here in Boston, the region provided the theological and the moral framework for a distinct Christian political theory. And it was in Boston that gave the rise to the key figures of the cause for independence, men like John Adams, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Paul Revere. And it was just outside of this city where the first shots were heard in Lexington and Concord, which sparked the cause of independence. It was in Boston where self-government was born, and it was here that the moment for independence began.
When you open most history books today, children's, young adult, and adult literature, think Alice Dalglish, 4th of July story, Charles Coffin, Jennifer Pollard, and adult literature as well, you'll find a history of the American War for Independence that goes something like this. America grew up and decided Mother Britain was a tyrant. There will be a basic list of unpleasant taxes and rules imposed by Britain, and an account of fiery tempers by the colonists, and then you jump straight to the battle strategy at Bunker Hill. You'll read about Longfellow, 2 if by land, 1 if by sea, which never really tells you why the British were coming and why that was such a big deal. Nobody wants to claim the first shot at Lexington and Concord, but we all know Washington didn't have teeth, Hamilton was cool, Franklin may or may not have harnessed electricity. But all these fun facts from our nation's history are missing the most important piece of the puzzle, the backstory. So if I began the story of St. George and the dragon right in the middle of the battle, you would all be confused and rightly disinterested. Why is this random knight fighting a dragon? And in the backstory, add in the backstory about an old king holed up in his castle with his terrified people, destroyed crops, a long history of dead knights, and the dragon's cruel insistence on eating the princess, and now you'll be invested. You really do want St. George to win, and you want to know how he does it. So for this Explore History series, we want to give you the backstory for America's independence. On the eve of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration, we want to bring you back to the 18th century, give you a taste for the ideas that inspired the founding of our nation. Instead of just quipping fun facts about the founding fathers, we want to answer the question, why did men lay down their lives for this cause? Was America just an enlightened teenager casting off the shackles of an overbearing parent? Or were there much bigger ideas at play? Ideas that we should understand.
So the Explore History team's friends will know that we like to keep our perspective on history firmly rooted in Christian and Covenantal framework. So all events in the past, great and small, are God's handiwork woven together in a great tapestry to display His power and His glory. The greatest event in history is Christ's incarnation, His birth, His life, His death and resurrection and ascension to His throne. And all authority is His, and His ongoing conquest of the world shapes every incident, great and small. All right, so sometimes this special show of His providence will upstage any others within centuries, and we are here to present America's birth as one of those singular moments. The people in the last days of American colonies wondered, as we might, how did we get to this point of bloodshed, and what exactly is this going to cost, and will it be worth it for the right reasons? And we are here to demonstrate that the men of the past were not full of a secret sauce or destiny. They were saturated in Christian character, and the best of them were practiced in submitting to God, even with their failings. We don't believe America was a singular moment because of the rugged individuals who decided to write their own destiny. The most encouraging things about this story are the things that no human could predict or plan. Our hope is that you walk away from this series equipped to be men and women God is calling you to be in our own generation. We want to establish a foundation for confidence in our role, great or small, as we serve and worship the King who rules over it all.
When we look at the culture of America at the time of independence, some have tried to minimize the Christian beliefs of the time, and often the excuse is that it was either tradition or is the cultural expectation of people at the time. But when you read the writings of and look at the lives of the lawmakers, you come to a completely different conclusion. The civil framework for 18th century America was a direct continuation of English common law, and that was directly tied and linked to Western Christianity. In New England, the Puritans used the Bible and Reformed political theology to structure their self-governing colonies. And when the founders resisted the tyranny, they were not inventing a new political system. They were instead designing a system of government that was based upon the law of God and continuing the principles of the Protestant Christian thought.
Two competing perspectives were at play leading up to the American War for Independence. The dominant perspective was the Christian theory of local self-government and lawful resistance. This was the consistent topic of the American pulpit for decades before the Declaration of Independence was even penned. A pernicious view that was invading the American thought at the time came from the European Enlightenment. And this theory proposed that the human mind could be the instrument of devising human liberty and prosperity solely based on reason alone. Now, the character of Christian liberty was articulated for years, as I said, before the Declaration of Independence by faithful preachers. Some of these that are local to the Boston area that we're going to talk about are Jonathan Mayhew, Samuel Cooper, and Charles Chauncey. They had the tenacious belief that man was created by God and that he fell in sin. And this falling into sin really set the stage for their understanding of civil government, that it was a corrective agent against that, but that you can't empower the government too much and you have to put checks and balances against anyone in authority because that individual himself is fallen. And so the preachers of that time, the American pulpit, was influencing the mindset and the thinking of men like John Adams, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, Elias Boudinot, and Patrick Henry. These men really embraced the truth of Scripture, the claims of Jesus Christ, that he was the divine Son of God, and that he had brought into motion something that would bring truth to victory. Now, the humanistic champions of the age were also fairly loud, but they were not ingrained in the culture quite so much. Men like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine, they were building on a foundation set by John Locke and the bringing of the Enlightenment to America. But the Enlightenment never truly took hold in the American mind. And so, to one set or another, these men who were teaching the Enlightenment theories, they were minimizing the mindset of man as fallen. And so they did not have the right perspective on how to address the fallenness of man in society. And the weaknesses of the American system are attributed to the Enlightenment, the strengths of it to the Christian character of the people. And so that's what we want to bring out as we go through some of these videos, is to really hone in on the distinctions of what was biblical Christian liberty and what were the humanistic and Enlightenment ideas that crept into the cracks.
All right, so the next few days here, we are going to go to Lexington, Concord. We're going to go to Braintree. We're going to make live videos Friday and Saturday, and Sunday. We'll end Sunday in up in Portsmouth.
I don't remember the name of the. It's the church where George Whitefield is buried and where he preached many of his sermons. So we were trying to find a place to commemorate that particular piece of this story, and we're really excited to go there. I'm especially excited to go there.
Right,
So-
and we'll be doing other places in Boston.
Yep, we'll
Old
be
State
exploring all
House.
the Old State House, Old South Church, at Paul Revere's house. So tune in and follow along as we explore history in Boston.